think that's real. Like the whole like line about like what's the point in driving a car if you're only going to work, or what's the point in a house if you never live in it? You know,
Yeah.
it's like we gain these things, but we never get to appreciate them.
Let's go.
What's good, y'all? This is Bitches One TV. I'm Monica. Today I'm here with.
Miles Carter,
So how you doing today, man?
pretty good, bro. Feeling good.
That's good, man. I wanted to talk to you because I see you doing things big on YouTube. You have streaming, you good poetry, it's doing numbers. You're only 22, man. How does it feel to have accomplished so much at 22?
I don't know, because I don't really feel like I've accomplished a lot. I think I have like a lot of things I still want to do, but I think everything I've done so far has been kind of like, it's not just me. I feel like it's like purpose larger than me. I'm kind of just walking in alignment with that.
I feel that. So what's your motivation behind everything you do?
So when I started, it was like different, but I think now my motivation is more so based towards like purpose, and that like how can I use this platform that's been given to me, or this voice that's been given to me? How can I use that to impact other people, or in the way that it's meant to be used? You know, because I think these kinds of things is not really like it's not like I got up and I was like, yo, let me get on YouTube and let me make videos. You know, like and I definitely didn't do anything to create a following. Kind of just happening that way. So when I see that, I see like God. So I'm like, all right. I go back to God. Like, all right, well, what do you want me to do with this? And where do you want me to go with this? And kind of just move that way.
I feel that. So what was it like just doing something different? Like what was it like taking the poetry route instead of rapping? Like what was it like just saying, hey, I'm gonna do this different
Or
to be heard?
I think it came from like the point, like Demon was like, I used to shoot like music videos and stuff like that, which was like really cool, but I felt like I wasn't ever expressing a lot of things that I was dealing with. And then it just came to a point in my life where it just happened through a series of events where like my car broke down and I lost some equipment, so I was stuck in my house, and like my best friend had just passed like a few months prior, so there was like a lot on my mind and a lot of things I was going through personally, and I felt like I needed a voice, I needed to like get it out of me, and I felt like I couldn't do that through just photography or just videography, so I did it the only way I knew how. I started making videos, just kind of hoping that like somebody might be able to relate to what I'm dealing with, or you know, have a conversation about it, so I wasn't stuck in my head all the time. And from there, like it just kind of went viral on Twitter, like the second video I made, and then from there I just kind of realized like people wanted these kinds of conversations, which was crazy to me because, you know, when you're going through things for yourself, you tend to feel like I'm the only one dealing with this, or I'm alone in this. So to be able to, one, find the courage to express those, and then two, be greeted by people who relate to it, kind of changes your whole perspective. Like, yo, like, although I feel alone, I'm not really alone. So now it gets to a point where you can create things like, and just learning to be honest with yourself and walking through your problems, and then sharing those lessons, which is, we talked about when we first met, we were talking about like siblings and stuff like that.
Inspiring our siblings.
Exactly, and in that I kind of realized like that was kind of a dope thing to do, because I thought it would be cool if I could share the lessons that I'm learning throughout my life, especially the lessons I'm having to learn without any kind of mentor, or kind of having to experience or fail, you know, and learn a lesson from it. I figured if I can leave these messages for my siblings, you know, answers to the questions that I wish somebody would answer for me, then, you know, that would be a good thing to leave for them, so that they, I mean, naturally in life you're going to figure yourself out, but I think
They help them grow, they grow.
exactly, having at least some kind of like, you know what, I'm dealing with heartbreak, at least my big bro made a video, a couple of videos on heartbreak I can watch and get some insight, instead of having to get my heart broken and learning for myself.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. So, what about criticism? Like, did you receive any criticism during when you first started, or even now?
I don't think I didn't really receive a lot of criticism, or maybe I just didn't see it. I received a lot of love, I think, and I think I don't know. I imagine it's because, you know, you can't really hate on somebody for being honest, you know. And I think in the few times I've seen people say something, it's just been like far in between. But I was just watching this sermon today about like where you put your focus, and I think I learned that during all of that, and that, like, you know, even when I do see those bad things, or I do see people say crazy stuff. Like, if I only focus on that, then I'm just going to continue creating that. Whereas, if I can be like, like this is going to come with it, but I focus on the good, I focus on what I'm doing, I focus on how I feel, then I think that's a much better place to like keep my psyche or keep my mindset.
Feel that. What about the growing of from when you started to now? When you hit your first 1,000, first 10,000?
So, I think the way I see that is like, I think the growth first starts internally, and whatever everyone else sees is just a reflection of what's already happened inside of me like months prior. So even before I made content, I realized my life had already like put me through certain things to grow me, internally, so that I could be prepared for that kind of thing. And then I remember there was a point when people would be like, yo, like, you should have 1 million followers or 1 million this, and it took me a while to kind of realize that, like, I don't want anything until it's made for me. So if I'm only supposed to be speaking to 1,000 people right now, I'm gonna speak to 1,000 people until I've grown enough within myself to have the lessons or a voice worthy of reaching 1 million people, because that's influence. And when you're considering the influence you have over what people think, whether or not, like, as long as they're consuming your content for those 2 minutes or whatever, you have influence over the thoughts that are in their head or the feelings that they might feel. So I take that very seriously. So I feel like when I was in high school, I started a YouTube channel with my friends. Didn't get like a following off of that, but I'm realizing now, like, if I had gotten 1,000 followers in high school, I would have been putting things in people's minds that I definitely don't agree with now. So I feel like it's more so, like, that's why I said it's purpose, because I feel like right now, if I'm supposed to speak to 1,000 people, I'm gonna have 1,000 people. When I've grown enough within myself to speak to 300,000 people, I'm gonna be delivered 300,000 of them. When I've grown enough again to speak to 1 million people, then 1 million people are gonna be delivered to me. But I think the growth starts internally first.
I remember when me and you had a conversation, you was telling me, don't worry about everybody, don't worry about trying to get 1,000 viewers. Focus on the 100 core supporters. Or can you speak on that more, just focusing on the 100 core people and how much, if you focus on them, they'll follow you no matter where you go, no matter what you do, because they believe in you.
Yeah. I think when it comes to like building a business or building a brand, you want to be able to, we tend to kind of focus on the larger numbers, like how can I get 1 million views or how can I get 1 million people to watch this? But if you're talking about like profit for yourself on a business level, what you really need is a core 100 people. Because if a core 100 people are invested in not your brand or not your idea, but you as a person, they're invested in your thoughts, in who you are, in your experience, in your life story. Those 100 people, no matter where you go, whether you write a book or make a video or or do a podcast or make an album, they're the ones who are going to support you. If you sell merch for $10, you're getting 100 people who are going to buy that. You might have 10,000 fans, but it's those 100 who support you. So I think it's smart to not focus on the 10,000 or the mass of opinions, but think about like who is my core demographic, who are the people I'm really speaking to, and who are the people who consistently show up for whatever I create. And you speak to them, and you maintain quality and control for them. So I just think that's beneficial, because then it keeps you from straying too far out, because we get caught up, like as your following grows, you get caught up in so many opinions and so many different ideas. But if you can level with yourself and be like, who is here at the core and who is here consistently, and you speak to those people, it doesn't matter if you get 1 million, 10 million, 50 million people, you're really speaking to 100 people. What my dad told me was that when you're speaking from your heart, the people who need to hear will always be revealed. So if I'm on live, I do like Instagram live sometimes it's 100 people, 200 people, but I know that probably only 5 of those people are really the ones who the message is meant for, And so like, I'm not so much worried about what everybody's saying. I know that like, I'm trying to speak to the 5 people who came to get what it is that I'm here to deliver.
Can we talk about the mindset of the culture, as far as the mindset of our culture, our generation?
Where it's a lot of things. I think.
What do you think about people getting wrapped too much into money, like the money aspect of everything, and not just loving whatever it is they do?
I feel like when money is your core motivation, it's not that it's not something you should ever consider, but I think when money is your core motivation, then you can get trapped in the cycle of always chasing it, because it will never be enough. Because again, what you're chasing is external. You know, money is external, meaning you're putting all of your identity in something that is outside of you. And what that produces is that somebody has the power to take that from you, or you continually have to chase it. If I get a house, somebody's like, well, you got a house, but you don't got a bigger house. You got that car, but you don't got this car. Like, there's always something better because it's worldly, and the world continues to advance. So there's always going to be something else where, as I felt like, when you're pursuing more internally, like, how can I find my own fulfillment? How can I find my own heart? How can I, when I do this, am I doing it because it can make a profit, or can I do this because, you know, I can make money? For instance, your podcast, like, am I doing this solely because I want to flip a profit off of it? Or am I doing this because I have something worth saying, you know, and I feel like, you know, I want to share this, you know? And I think that is more like a long-term kind of thing, because say this pops off tomorrow, you know, you make your bread, then you've reached your goal. What are you going to do next? Like, we were working for money, so now it's like I got the money, I don't really have any idea why I'm doing this anymore. So you might default to like, let me just make more money. That's how people get trapped in that cycle of like,
The goal gotta be bigger than money. You gotta be,
yeah,
you gotta want to inspire somebody, want to reach somebody, want to get the message across to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that never ends, because you're constantly growing within yourself, so you're constantly learning more, and there's constantly people that you haven't reached yet. So that's like a lifelong goal in whatever you do. Whereas money, I think, is just more like, money's so finite. You know, you make enough to pay your rent. I think that was my goal for a long time, and that got delivered to me. I got enough to be able to pay my rent off of what I do. And from there, I realized, like, yeah, there's so much more I want to do that money could help me get to. But I think that's going to come along the way. I think I had to turn around and think about, like, all right, now that I've given the space and the opportunity to really have the time, because a lot of people don't have time to really think about their own feelings and their own thoughts, because you got to go to work in the morning, you got to go to school, you don't get the time to sit back and think like, bro, how am I feeling about this? Like, what's going on inside of me?
Constantly on go.
Exactly. But when you get that space, that financial stability, as we call it, I think financial stability is supposed to only like be able to help you delve deeper within yourself. Like, now that I
Be
don't have
free in your mind as well.
exactly, provide you that room to be like, you know what, like, I don't have to work today, so I can sit down and write down my thoughts and figure out how I'm feeling, or figure out why I'm mad about this, or, you know, like, really dive into yourself.
For that, I know when we had our conversation, you was telling me about when you first grew your fan base. It started in Jamaica, it started in Germany, and your community that you in was the last to support you.
Yeah.
So like, what's that like, reaching everywhere first and then your community coming last? Because that's how I feel now. I feel like my community, where I'm from, and everybody who I know don't support me. And if I can just reach or touch somebody and get the message across to somebody, I feel like I accomplished my goal.
Word. I think that's how it always goes, right? Because when somebody knows you personally, and I think it's like nobody's exempt from this. When you know somebody personally, it's hard to really envision the impact that they may make, because you know your boy from when he's a kid. Like, you don't know him as no like idea or celebrity or anything like that. You know him as your boy, you know, which I think is a good thing, because you don't want to get caught up in the idea of a person. But I think that's what happens locally. When people understand you locally, they're going to have a mindset of you locally, which can be good, because what happens on the flip side of that is that you blow up or whatever, and everyone you know only knows the idea of you, so they only treat you as this name or this brand, whereas the people who are local,
they know what you came from.
exactly, treat you as a person, which is why like I had to really get back in tune with my family, because I think I got not even so much caught up in people treating me like that, but I started treating myself like that. I started treating myself as the idea or as the image, and I had to get back to like my family who knew me as just Chef. Like, it's not no following, it's not no money, it's not no this. Like, we know you from your kid, we know who you are, we know your purpose and all that. So, yeah, like I don't take it to heart, because I think although some people might feel like I'm not getting no support, I think that's a beautiful thing about the digital age. It's like you put something online today, you can reach the other side of the world in 5 seconds. You know, we can connect to people in that way. So I don't take it offensively at all. I feel like it's actually a good thing to be able to have people around you. And although sometimes it might feel like they're not supporting you, or they catch on late, that's fine, because when they do catch on, at least they still acknowledge you for the person you are and not the idea of who you are.
That's deep. So I had a question in the middle of that. lost. I didn't want to cut you off.
Or usually sometimes when I'm be doing this, I just keep like a notepad and I'm just typing out whatever. Cause like I have a terrible memory, so I gotta like write down like whatever question I gotta ask.
Same, bro, same. What did you say in the middle of that? I had a question I wanted to bounce off of that. I know. So once you start getting big headed, and once you start seeing yourself as this image, like what's the process like of getting back to yourself? Cause I was that, like I played football. Back in high school, I thought nobody could tell me nothing. I'm playing college ball. I'm a star player. Like my head was big. But once I came to college, it wasn't even more so college humbled me. It was just like I realized I gotta scale myself back. You're not what you thought you were. You gotta bring yourself back to reality and not like put yourself above other people.
Right, exactly.
And so what was that process like? Just
I think something
resealing.
very similar. Like I'm grateful. I feel like I definitely got like humbled, and I personally think like my humbling was from God, because it's like I was moving in a certain direction and so much success was coming, and I was like so tunnel vision on everything I was about to do, that I wasn't taking the time to consider like me on the inside, and I didn't take the time to consider that in all this grinding, all this working, I wasn't calling my mom, I wasn't spending time with my siblings, like I was neglecting the things that mattered most for the things that I thought I needed to prioritize, and it wasn't to say like I was like a terrible person. I think even in that I was telling myself like, yeah, I gotta do this for my mom, I gotta do this for my family, but really it's like I got to a point where I realized like I'm doing all this work to try to make money or get myself solid to support my family, but money's not what my family needs. Although like they could use some bread, but what your family needs is you. They need you to spend time with them. They need to know you love them, and even more, you need genuine love. You need to have people around you consistently. You need to be around good people who put the right kind of thoughts and mindsets in your mind. So I think I just got to a point where like God like just took all those things from me. Like I started to see like it's like I built this entire mountain up, right? And then I just saw it fall down and things started to go crazy. Like I had like a mental breakdown. My friends just seemed distant. Like money just kind of slowed up. And what I realized was that happened because I wasn't built on the right foundation. And the thing about foundations is that like no matter how high you build a castle, if it's not on the right foundation, the first storm that comes is falls down. Right? Exactly. So I think I had to have all those things taken from me, and it hurt because here I am thinking like, bro, like I finally got my stuff together, I'm finally going somewhere. So to see that like crumble and fall apart felt chaotic and full of uncertainty. But when I was put in a place where I was so low, where I had nowhere to look but up, like that's when I saw God for real, and that's when I started to see myself for real. I was like, bro, like this isn't me, like this isn't all about me. There's nothing I do here that doesn't come, or none of my talents really are like me, like I got this and I got this. It's more like, this is what's been gifted to me. And that made me like really start spending time with my family, and in that I started learning myself more, humbling myself more. And I think now it's like I'm built on a better foundation, like as a human being first. And to kind of just tap back to something you said earlier about our generation, I think we are very caught up in the image of things and not the foundation of things. So I had the image of somebody who was solid, somebody who was good, but my foundation was terrible. Whereas now, like I've been working on myself for like the past 9 months, like just on some like I've been scaling back, just speaking to myself, learning myself, and on the outside it might look like, oh, he might have fell off or he's not doing much, but really I'm building my foundation, I'm securing myself, I'm putting God at my core, I'm putting family at my core, I'm putting values at my core. And I think from there, anywhere I go, anything I do, because I have this foundation, won't fall, despite the storms that might come in life.
Yeah, one thing I thought was dope was, man, when I first talked to you, actually be on the podcast, or even sat down with you to have a conversation, you was like, link up with me first.
Right.
Like I gotta know what you stand for, what you stand by, what are your values and morals before I just go on the podcast. So what are your values and morals? What are the things that you live by in life?
That's a good question. I feel like the things that matter to me really are patience, like genuine love, first of all. That's first and foremost. Like anything I do, I think has to be done in a matter of love, Being that like, even if I'm mad right now, I'm gonna find a way to constructively express my anger in a way that is reflecting love. And even if that means I'm not gonna say anything. if I'm pissed right now, and if I know that I'm only going to respond out of anger or in hate, I'm not going to say anything, because I think that's our number one responsibility, like just as human beings, you know, like we're here to spread and share and experience love. And from there, it's like all the byproducts of love comes patience, comes understanding, you know, comes like time, comes like, you know, all these core values, kindness, you know, like all these things are like come from you centering love at your core. So that's my whole thing, and that's my whole thing with like whenever like linking up with people, you know, like I feel like everybody's at different spaces in their life, but for me personally, it's like I love to see people do work, I love to see people do art, I love to help or be a part of it any way I can, but at the same time, if you got a podcast, right, and you want me to come on, if I'm gonna come on and, you know, I want to share this message, but every other video you do is some crazy stuff that's completely misaligned with what I got going on, then that means that, especially as you develop a name, I feel like I don't want to bring anybody here to get a message, but then as soon as they click off of this, they get distracted again. You know, I'd rather see like some consistency, like, yeah, you can check me out, but you can check him and check his other videos, and you get that same feeling, you get to learn more, you know, you're experiencing new realms of love, and like the one that you can offer, what I can offer, what he can offer, all that.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I don't mean to like ramble, but I think just like we gotta be very deliberate too about the people that we surround ourselves with on a consistent basis, because I heard a lot growing up that like, you know, you are the people you surround yourself with. I didn't really understand that, but I think now it's kind of a matter of like, my boy who was just here, he kind of put it to me in an analogy one time where we all have 5 pillars in our minds, and on those pillars are people who we allow to have influence over us, over how we think and how we feel. And we tend to default that. We tend to just like your mom or your dad or your brother or your friends might be in that position because you never consider who really has influence over me. But we take the time to think about that. Then you realize that the people who you're around consistently, even if I'm not what you're on, like if you're doing some crazy stuff and I'm around it, I may not do it with you, but slowly and surely I start to normalize it, because I know you, I'm like, well, he does it and he's cool, he's alright, you know, so then it's like it changes my perspective, it changes my mind on a subconscious level. But we tend to think that because something doesn't affect us consciously in the moment, it doesn't have an effect on us, and that's how a lot of us get caught up in some crazy stuff.
That's a fact. I experienced that myself, even from just drinking, partying, all those things, like growing up, being around people who that's literally their lifestyle, and thinking, oh, they're cool, it's okay, and then just being around it so much it became me.
Yeah.
So I experienced that for sure. That's one thing I like about me, the Dingo. Ever since I met bro, I constantly find myself being introduced to business-minded people, people who have goals, who have dreams, who have ambitions. Before I met him, I didn't consistently meet people like that, or wasn't around people in that same realm.
Right. Wow, that's powerful. So how would you say like how would you say changing the relationships or the people you surround yourself with has affected like your life and your own vision?
A lot. I got too many friends that smoke, so that's one thing. Like, nothing's wrong with it, but it's just like if that's your life and that's like all you care about, I can't be brought into that. I got too many friends who are in the streets. If that's your life and that's what I gotta distance myself. And I think me distancing myself, they see what I'm trying to do, they see where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
And they know that's not my life, that's not my character, so they respect it.
Right.
But it's also like, sometimes it's like, I wish you was doing this with me. Sometimes I wish you were here. Sometimes I wish, you know what I'm saying, the stuff that I experienced here today in this time, I wish you would experience too.
Right.
So.
And that's valid. I think that ties into something we were kind of talking about before, about like forging your own path. Because like when we talk about surrounding ourselves with people, even people who you might say like do like mad drugs or they're always in the streets or that's their entire life, I don't think it's to say that you gotta, you know, like just cut them off, like bro, I don't rock with you no more. But it's more on some like I said, the keyword is consistent. Like you still hang around people, you still, because again, like there's no point in you getting all this knowledge or learning or growing within yourself just to hold it to yourself. You know, you gotta be in those spaces. It's a blessing for you to be able to reach people in those spaces so that you can be an example of that light. You know, but again, it's consistently. Like somebody, I seen this tweet where somebody was like, Jesus sat with sinners, he didn't sin with them. You know, which I think is like a real life principle. It's like you don't shun people because of what they may do or anything like that. Like you get around them, but even in being around them, you assert yourself enough to be an example of that light. And I feel like the only way you can really set that foundation is by first, forging that path for yourself. Like I spend time with myself. I went this road alone to really understand myself, so that no matter where I go, I'm not adapting to my surroundings, but I am presenting myself in this world, and I can inspire whoever may be out there.
One thing that has like changed me since I've been grown is noticing like anything can happen to anybody. Like now when I look at drug addicts, I'm not looking at them like you're a drug addict. I'm looking at you like, I wonder what happened in your life. I wonder what things transpired to this moment. I can't imagine the pain that you've been through, everything that you've been through. When I look at homeless people, I'm not looking at them like you're homeless. I'm looking at you like, I wonder what's your story. I wonder what have you been through. I wonder what happened. Like, I wonder, do you want help? Could I help you? Like, I be thinking all these things, but sometimes, yeah, it's just deep.
Nah, that's real. And I think that's a major mindset shift to have, because I think even in the simplest form, like I apply the same thing to like say somebody is rude to me. Like I go get a burger and the person is rude to me. Like it's like I'm not normally like if you say something crazy to me, my immediate response is like I feel insulted or disrespected, so I'm gonna lash back out. Like you're not disrespecting me like that. But then now it's like when you take the more understanding approach, instead of you getting caught up in your emotions, you're like,
what had that person been through that day? They could have had 100 people be rude to them. They could have something going on at home. Their child, they could have supposed to pick their child up 20 minutes ago.
Crazy, right?
They're stuck at work, and
Exactly.
those are real life things that happen to people all the time. And we don't think about those things. We just, oh, this person's rude. They're at work. This is their job. They're supposed to be nice to me. Yeah, like.
Exactly. And that presents you with the opportunity to then be like, you know what, I'm gonna offer some kindness here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna offer a light here, because that might just be exactly what this person needs because of what they've been dealing with all day. Same thing with like homeless people. Like I remember like a few months ago, like it was a consistent habit of mine to go downtown and I would sit down and like talk to homeless people, because like it's crazy when you sit down and talk to some of them, bro. Like you might think that you have
some of the most intelligent people ever.
They have life
Yeah.
wisdom. Like things that you haven't even experienced enough of life to understand it, and they can put you on game to so many crazy things. They have like resilient spirits to the point where it's like, bro, this person might seem broken, but they're so far from it, and it changed my perspective on what really matters in life. It's like if I'm a person who's in a house, got a car, everything, I think I'm comfortable, But every time I go around people, I'm changing up myself. Every time I go around people, I'm feeling insecure. I'm really lost on the principles of life. Whereas you see a homeless person, bro, it don't matter like what they may look like. They're themselves. They are who they are, because I feel like they settle into their identity. And it's not to say like you can't get a better situation, but I'm just saying like you have to see the beauty in them. I don't like the idea of just looking at these people like, oh man, like
just judging
from a
like,
pitiful,
yeah.
like it's not pity, because some of these people could teach you so much if you sit down and have a conversation with somebody. Like it's real, like life wisdom, things that you probably wouldn't learn for the next 40 years in your shoes.
Yeah, for sure. Do you fear being a black man like with a mission? Do you fear being a black man with a mission in America at this time or any time, just in general? Like, do you ever think someone is gonna look at you and just box you in that category of criminal, thug, all these things because you're black?
I understand it.
Yeah.
No, that's a reality. That's not for me. It's not a fear. That's a reality. That's what happens. That's what comes with it. Even as you gain success, you're gonna find that people look at you a certain way. It's very covert. Like nobody's gonna be like, oh, he's black, like he's not good enough. But it's just in the way that they speak, in the way that they act. And especially when you start finding success, you start to realize that it's not a lot of people who look like you in these realms. But it's not a fear, because I don't think that I'm supposed to be afraid of them. I think they're afraid of us. I think they're afraid of a black man realizing himself, because you see how we go into all these different fields and dominate. Like no matter where we go in business and law and sports, like we only really give ourselves highlight for sports and entertainment. Yeah, because like that's what they pay us for, like off rip. But there's so many black people in different spaces, and it's a reason why they only pay us.
Doctors, lawyers, engineers.
But they don't get highlighted, because once people start to see that as a position of like, wow, like not only is that something I can aspire to, but that's something people who look like me dominate in. In the same way when we look at sports, it's not no white people playing basketball, like, because they know that we dominate wherever we go, so they're gonna pay us there and also try to keep us low by saying you can only be successful. It's like they put black people in a space where they only pay you if you're entertaining them, you know? Whereas I feel like, bro, like we have such amazing and complex minds, bodies, spirits, souls, you know, where whenever we go, whenever we find our way somewhere, like we dominate instantly, just the way that we are, you know? And I feel like that's why America, just kind of specifically, I don't mean I would just say like America, white corporate America, is afraid of black men. And the way it's flipped is that they want you to be afraid of them so that you can feel small, so that you can feel voices, so you can remain where you are. But, and it's not even on some like race versus race, because I don't think that white America represents white people. I think white America represents corporate America, the people who are billionaires and trillionaires who like profit off of keeping people low. You know, like the average white person isn't your enemy. You know, and actually no one is your enemy but yourself. But the people who are putting you down isn't the average white person. It's those people who don't let you into rooms, who won't let your people be successful. And I don't think it's because I should be afraid of them. I think they're afraid of what we will do if we're allowed into those spaces. I
watched the Tupac interview from 1994. He spoke on how society uses black culture for everything. Happiness, sorrow, our entertainment, our music, black culture is what runs the world, really. So like,
Social.
How do you feel about other demographics taking the culture for every essential need?
I think in a perfect world, we are meant to, in a perfect world, we would all be settled into our own identity and not be threatened by another person's identity. So we could share our culture without someone stealing it. Whereas I think we're in a place now where people don't know themselves. So a white guy, and again, even more than not knowing yourself, people are motivated by money. So everybody's gonna be a rapper because rappers produce money. Because we think that we can't experience life unless we can afford life. Yeah. So it's like money is like, I think, at the core of it. But I mean, I think when it comes to like taking from different cultures, I think in a perfect world, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed, like, God made us all here on this planet different so that we could have different experiences and share different foods and recipes and music and all this. Like, that's the beautiful part of humanity. But because we become so corrupted by ego, now we feel like I gotta take from you and have from myself, rather than feeling like I can be so comfortable with myself that I can share with you. It's like white people, we always joke on white people and say they don't got culture. Like, white people got culture. Coldplay is culture, bro. Like they all got all these bands, Evanescence, like they got really dope music. There's really cool stuff about just white people that they've brought to the world. But I think we just kind of, everybody wants to take the black man's, because the black man, I think, is just, I don't know, we're naturally dope, you know, but again, it's like you see how we are socially powerful, but we're not the ones making money off of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, although we are the ones who create rap, who gets credit, you know, when they can rap a white person? They come in like, oh, you can do what the black guy can do, we're giving you all the bucks, we're giving you all the albums, we're giving you all the deals. Buddy who can like do the little shoulder shimmy, you know, like, black people have been doing that forever, but a white guy comes along and he does it, he gets all the attention. Why? Because we are so great collectively, almost to the point where they try to normalize it. Just be like, oh yeah, they can dance, they can do this, but you see a white person doing it's great. And it's like, that's not the way we're supposed to operate. Like, give us our credit for what we do, and it's not taking credit from you. Like, if you can sing and you're white, it's not because you're white, you can just sing. And I can sing and I'm black, but I can just sing. And acknowledge us both as singers, rather than you having to come and exist in my space so that you can shine.
I feel that. What did you experience in your 9 to 5, or even in your life, to just make you want to be an entrepreneur, make you want to own something, make you want to inspire other people to give back?
Well, I feel like, for one, I've always had a need deep inside of me to express ideas and feelings. That's just ingrained into me from I was very young. Like, that's how I've always been more creatively inclined, because that's a way in which I could express. Now, when I was working, and I've only had one job because I'm from Jamaica, so I didn't have like a green card or anything, so I couldn't legally work in America for a while. So I had to be creative. I had to make money off wherever I could, like photo shoots and graphic design and this and that. And so I kind of got into the entrepreneurial spirit, like, at the time I thought I was disadvantaged because all my other friends got jobs and they're getting paychecks every 2 weeks and they're going shopping and I'm here with the same clothes for like 4 months, like feeling terrible about myself. But I see again how my life had already been designed and planned out, even the parts that I didn't enjoy, to build my spirit into this direction. And then when I finally got like my papers and stuff, I was excited to get a job. So like, bro, I can finally have some kind of consistency, some stability. But after a while of working there, for one, I just didn't like the idea of somebody else having control over my time, because I feel like this is, first of all, this is life, like, how can you tell me that somebody put me here on this earth, on this planet, in my own body to experience and to learn and to grow, and you want to confine my entire experience into a job and tell me how to live my life or what I should prioritize or this or that. It's like, I felt like I wasn't even living, I was just kind of coasting through life, and I couldn't sit with that. So, I buckled down and I was creating, I was praying about it, and I was like, bro, I just want to get out of this, I just want freedom to be able to express ideas and to be comfortable off that. And I said that prayer like all the time, and it came true, which is why now it's like, when your dreams come true, you gotta realize them. Because I think sometimes I got so caught up in chasing dreams that even when my dreams came true, I was already so focused on my next dream that I didn't take the time to appreciate my current one. Which again is what I had to get back to and humbling myself and realizing, like, bro, like, you're creating art for a living. This is what you wanted for years. Like, take the time to appreciate that instead of thinking about, well, I want to do an album now, I want to do a podcast, I want to do this. It's like, nah, bro, like, take the time to be grateful. And from that gratitude, I think comes the progression that we see.
And your I quit my job video, one of the dopest lines to me was, what's the point of having a car if you drive to work every day? Like, that just made me think about like so much stuff, like what's the point of all these things if I'm only doing it to work?
I think that's real, like the whole line about like what's the point of driving the car if you're only going to work, or what's the point in the house if you never live in it, It's like we gain these things but we never get to appreciate them because we always have to go back to work. And again, it's like if you're working for something, like it's supposed to be for a purpose, it's not supposed to be for a paycheck, So I agree, man. That's part of the whole thing too. It's like, even if when I got a job, I could finally afford an apartment, which I was hot with. I was like, bro, I finally got my own place. But then I realized I got an apartment. Just to get up every morning. Yeah, just gotta get up every morning and go back to work. Like when I do get to be at home in the apartment, I'm tired from working, so I gotta sleep. So to even be able to enjoy even that portion of time I get to myself, I gotta go get drunk, just to prolong and to deepen that appreciation. And it's like, that's when I was like, bro, I can't get caught up in this cycle. Like if I'm working, it's like my life can't be centered around work. Work should be something that provides me the opportunity and the platform to live my life, which I think is where that entrepreneurial spirit comes from. It's like, well, I gotta be able to work for myself so that I can autonomously ration out my time and say, hey, I can work 2 months out of the year and live the other months, or I can work 3 days out of the week and live the other 4 or whatever, So it's like it's having that control and that power. Now, as an entrepreneur, that can be really difficult too, because then comes accountability. Like if you don't have a boss, you gotta be your own boss. And naturally, we don't really, at least I found that was difficult for me, because I realized that it was very difficult for me to complete work when I didn't have to be accountable to somebody else. Meaning that I make videos for a living now, but who's telling me I gotta make a video this month? What's stopping me from just sitting at home all day and doing whatever? So there's a balance in that, and that's why I'm glad I got to have a job, is because I learned how to be accountable, and I got to apply those characteristics and those lessons to where I was now, which is why I think I was telling you before, even if you want to do bigger things than you are right now, don't just focus on what you want to do or how much you hate where you are. Take lessons from what you are, because your life is preparing you for what it is that you're meant to do. So you might be working at T-Mobile, you might want to be a radio personality. What you don't realize is being at T-Mobile is helping you develop your speaking skills, helping you to get quick on your feet, knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to sell something to somebody, knowing how to relate to somebody. Pick up those lessons, because your life is going to prepare you for what it is that you're trying to get to. But you have to stick with the journey and learn from the journey.
That's real. I don't think most people, I know I didn't think about that even to this moment. Just all the things that I am picking up from my 9 to 5 is going to prepare me for my entrepreneurial journey.
Exactly. And that's the beautiful part about life. Like, I feel like when you're walking in alignment with your purpose, and for me, when I say purpose, I mean for me, it's like I'm walking in alignment with God. I don't feel like I'm wasting my time so long as I'm walking or trying to walk in alignment, because I see now how my life got planned out. Like, I was a graphic designer, I was a photographer, I was a videographer, like barely making money, feeling like I wasn't doing anything. But like, I see now how it kind of adds up to where, like, now when I'm creating content for a living, it's not that I still have to be heavy in graphic design, photography, or videography, but even knowing what a good video is supposed to look like, knowing the basics of how to put graphics together or how that's supposed to be, knowing the quality of things, it makes you a well-rounded person. So again, like, you just gotta appreciate the journey and pick up the lessons. It's kind of like you're climbing a mountain. Like, you want to get to the top, but you don't want to be the whole journey there. You're just mad that you're not even walking. Like, take some time to look around and be like, bro, these trees are cool. Like, this path is dope. Like, I got some time to think. Like, enjoy the climb and not just the result.
I feel that for sure. I'm going to apply that to my life moving forward, because I look at this whole podcast journey now and I beat myself up. It's not doing what I wanted to do. I'm not reaching the amount of people I want to reach. All those things, instead of just saying, wow, like, I did this. This is a step. This next video is going to do this, and that's a step. And
Right.
so I appreciate that. You just gave me some game.
For sure, bro. Just the small accomplishments, for sure.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this, like, everything going on in the world right now? 2020, coronavirus, police brutality. You got so many different things going on. Like,
It's crazy.
racism is at an all-time high. Coronavirus, everything's shut down. There's still no toilet tissue. We haven't had toilet tissue, disinfectant spray, all these things in stores in months.
Which is crazy, because what's going on that demands a deficit of toilet paper? Like, they just got in the news like, hey, stack up on toilet paper, but like, what do we really need it for? What is it doing to help us with the virus? What is it doing to help us with anything? So you see how, like, news can really control the masses of people to do something that makes no sense, But yeah, I think it's crazy times, bro. Like, personally, I can't say I'm surprised, because I think these are like signs of the times. Like, I have an understanding or a belief in the direction that the world is going into. So I see it getting gradually worse, and even before all this, it's gradually getting worse. Years before, like, we're just now seeing the results.
The effects of everything that's already happened.
Yeah, exactly. Humanity's been like this. Like, even Will Smith said, like, racism is not more prevalent, it's just being recorded now, and that's real. I think it goes even beyond the racism issue. Like, humanity, we're really, who we are and how we're operating is starting to show itself. Even with the coronavirus, like, I think a lot of people for the first time, and this is me, like, on the good side of it, I saw it as a blessing, because for the first time in probably a decade or two, people had the opportunity to stop and think and consider what mattered to them. Being stuck with yourself at home with your thoughts and having to sort through those, if you took advantage, because we still distract ourselves with our phones. But if you took that time to really reconsider and reprioritize, people might have realized, like, I was grinding my whole life for school. I was grinding my whole life for this job. I was grinding my whole life for this. And to see
found their true calling within this time.
Or got towards it, because when you see how quickly that can be taken from you, or even more, you see how much those things were distracting you from yourself, work, school, social scenarios. When all those are moving away and you're only stuck with yourself, now you're thinking like, bro, well, without all those things, what actually gives me purpose? What actually makes me happy?
Yeah.
So what I've been seeing is like an influx in people doing more projects that are more like in line with who they are. I've seen people paint that I didn't even know could paint, Because you discover these things, like, I just feel calm when I paint, and I can do this because I enjoy it. We got so caught up in the mindset of, I'm gonna only do something if it's bringing me some kind of profit. That's the mindset we were stuck in as a society. But when profit is taken out the window, when all that's gone and you're stuck with yourself, you realize that, well, I can't live my whole life for the sake of money. There has to be something deeper than that.
Yeah.
Especially when, like, you have no choice but to sit with yourself, you start to realize, like, I am unfulfilled within myself and I'm stuck at my house, and it shouldn't be that way. I should be able to spend time with myself and feel okay. I should be able to sit in my house and not have to distract myself with friends or people or work or school or my phone. I should be able to just, like, be on my own and feel comfortable in my own space. And I think a lot of people really started to figure that out, which I think is a good thing. But the world is, like, going crazy right now, and It's for me, I've just kind of taken a more observational perspective, like, and I believe that my purpose in this moment, or the best thing I can do right now, is continue to work within myself. There's like this Cole line in this track that he did. I think it was like High for Hours, where it was like the real revolution happens inside of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's real because as much as I fully understand the anger and the chaos breaking out right now and why it's happening and why people are writing and this and that, like I understand it. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to bring about the change that we're seeking because you're trying to convince corporate America that you matter. And that's where we lose first of all, because I shouldn't have to sit here and convince you that I matter when I know that I matter. Like I matter and that's it. So I just have to convince myself, like despite the fact that you might try to make me feel small, or I can watch myself get killed over and over again on camera and you do nothing about it. You're basically sending a message that no matter how mad you get, you don't matter,
Yeah.
So the writing just feeds that. So for me, I just feel like, bro, like I have to sit with myself first of all and not let myself feel small and consider like, why do I matter? Who am I? Where am I coming from?
Who do I live for?
Who do I live for? What am I about? And if I can convince myself of that, bro, no matter what happens out there, like you can't take that from me. You can't take my confidence. You can't take my spirit because I don't know, bro. Like I definitely think like change needs to happen, but I think change starts internally. Something we talked about before, where even success. I think my success is a reflection of my internal journey, and that's what matters. So I don't think I'm gonna get any more successful until I grow internally. I don't think change is gonna happen in the world until we take the time to look at ourselves and be like, what, bro, like, who am I? And let me now start to walk this planet and walk this world as who I am, rather than trying to convince you guys or convince the world that I'm worthy of walking on this planet. Because you already are, you already are who you are. It's just a matter of like really sitting with yourself and realizing that and embodying that.
It's deep. Throughout that whole process, I was thinking about one thing that you also told me about stepping outside your comfort zone. For me, I'm an introvert. I'm not a people's person. I don't like taking pictures. I ain't posted on Instagram since 2016. Yeah. All these things like are not. People look at me all the time. When you doing a podcast, like this is, you don't post pictures, you don't talk to people. What make you want to do a podcast? And I try to tell them like it drives me to step outside my comfort zone, to do something that I'm uncomfortable with, to like know that I can get it done and do it at a high level pushes me. So can you talk about just stepping outside your comfort zone and the reward that you get once you accomplish what you thought you were afraid of?
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. The reward you get when you accomplish what you thought you were afraid of. That brings to mind this quote by Mac Miller where he said, like, I thought I saw a mountain in the distance. I walked up to it and realized it was a pile of rocks. I think that's how fear works for us. It's like our minds can create these images and ideas of what fear is, and it can seem so big until you actually do it and you realize, oh, it wasn't that bad. It's kind of like how you're afraid before you go cliff diving into a lake. Like the fear is there, but as soon as you jump, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. You get in the water, you're like, this is actually great, But still, every single time you get up there, you're gonna feel uncertain. Because fear is a natural thing. It's not something to ignore. But you don't let it dictate the things that you do in life. You don't let it control what you do in life. I think like somebody told me like every decision comes down to two options. You can move off of love or you can move in fear. And fear and love have different manifestations, but I think you always choose love. Despite your fear, you do it anyways, because what you find is that not only do you step outside of your comfort zone, but you grow. Sometimes things happen
Makes
to
you a better person in the process.
and a more developed person. And sometimes what you find is that like you are so much more equipped and so much stronger and so much more intelligent than you think you are. But because you keep yourself in a box, you tell yourself who you are over and over again. You tell yourself what your limitations are. But when you step outside of that box and you accomplish what you accomplish, you realize that, bro, I'm actually a lot deeper than I thought I was. I'm a lot smarter than I thought I was. I'm a lot more equipped, and that's how you gain a stronger identity, because you realize that you are so much more than you convinced yourself you are. So I think that's what's important in stepping outside of your comfort zone. It helps you realize the depth in who you are, and that secures your identity. People are always like, how do I find myself? And it's like, first of all, be honest. That's all you gotta do. How do I, if you want to know yourself, be honest with yourself, be honest when you speak to other people. And then even more, step outside of your comfort zone so you can continue to learn more about yourself. Never get comfortable with yourself, although that's what we seek. It's like you want to be comfortable within yourself, but don't get comfortable and feel like this is who I am, this is what I do, this is where I'm at, and it's okay. Like, no, like, there's always something more you can learn. And even more, there's always something you can change about yourself to be better. So constantly challenge yourself, and when life presents adversities and challenges, like face them head on, because adversity, I think, is an opportunity for you to build your character, you know? Even if you can get through it and stick through it, like, you realize you come out of it like much better than you were before.
What's some things that helped you like discipline yourself? Like, how did you keep yourself from not feeding into all the negativity that tries to bring you in?
That's a really deep question. I think for me, it first came from a realization of the distinction between ego and spirit. So for me, I realized that it's like, as a human being, we can operate in two different sections. You can operate in ego, you can operate in spirit. There's things that will feed your ego, there's things that will feed your spirit. And I think I lived a large part of my life primarily feeding my ego. And so when I made that realization, and when I say spirit, I think that's like, you know what we call your intuition.
Yeah.
I consider that the voice of God, like within me, like that voice that's always trying to guide you and direct you where you need to go or tell you where you don't need to go. So what I did to discipline myself was, once I realized that these two facets existed inside of me, I starved my ego. So I thought about like, well, what are the things that are feeding my ego? I realized drugs were feeding my ego. I realized drinking was feeding my ego. I realized sex was feeding my ego. So I cut all those out. And so I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do any of those things for a month and see how I feel differently. And once I cut those out, it's like, you can't just cut something cold turkey, you got to replace it with something. Even social media, like I cut social media for a while too. But when I cut social media, I still needed something to feed my attention. So I was like, instead of my phone, I'm going to get some books, you know? Instead of sex, I'm going to start talking to these women and getting to know them. You know, instead of drinking, I'm going to figure out what is inside of me that I need to deal with that would have inspired me to drink. So actually getting into what was below the surface, because the ego exists at the surface. The spirit is the entirety of who you are below the surface. So I think starving my ego, or not just feeding my ego and diving into the real issues, is what taught me discipline. And just in physical form, like I stopped drinking, stopped smoking, stopped having sex, and just so I could deliberately choose to focus more on my spirit. And over time, like, that begins a journey of identifying more with your spirit, and then showing up as your spirit and not as your ego, because the ego is where pride comes from, insecurity comes from, greed comes from. There's a spirit. I think the spirit knows that this body is only a vessel that holds it now. So when you go out into this world, you're not so concerned with what you can gain from it, because that's what the ego is. The ego is all about, what can I gain, how much money can I make, how much this can I get. But the spirit is concerned with, what can I add to the world, because I'm eternal. This is only an expression of me right now. I'm going to die, the spirit lives on. I die, my ego is gone with it. So when the spirit being eternal, I think, just changed my perspective on that. Like, well, my life is more about the impact I can leave and the lessons I can learn than the worldly things I can gain. Because the world is only temporary, but the spirit is eternal.
What was the process like leaving those things? Smoking, drinking, having sex with women, to tell yourself, I'm gonna get to know this person, to tell yourself, I'm gonna stop this, I'm gonna stop that. What was that process like? Was it easy for you to just, I'm done?
Yeah.
Or was it a gradual process?
Well, it depended, because I think we all have different backgrounds and we have different vices and we relate to things differently. So for me, like, smoking and drinking wasn't difficult for me. I could stop those instantly. Sex wasn't as easy, or not even to say sex, but like sexual intent, you know, because I was so used to, for one, that being my way of expressing intimacy with a woman. That's the only form of intimacy I knew. So that's the only way I could feel fulfilled with a woman. Whereas, like, after a while, after really taking out the equation, I mean, stumbled a couple times, but you try nonetheless. And I think after like a month, when I started to really deliberately decide, I remember it happened this one time when this girl had like come and she spent the weekend with me, and I was like, we're not doing this, you know, in my own mind. And I ended up getting to know her on like such a deeper level, like actually going to hang out with her and showing her stuff I thought was cool and getting to understand like where she was coming from, her past, like where she's at in her headspace, like how she feels, like emotionally, spiritually, getting to really understand her. I really realized like, wow, like this is true intimacy, like me getting to take the time to really understand a person, you know, understand why you feel the way you feel, your own perspective, learn from you, show you things from my world. That's when I realized like, wow, like there's so much in one single person to discover, but in just having sex, I think just kind of like capped it. So once I experienced that, I realized like this is something that I really want to pursue. So I think that helped me with my discipline in that like, despite my own desires, I'm gonna put my desires to the side in favor of actually getting to understand a person, which ultimately betters me as a person because now I can learn from you, I can grow from you, I can learn more of myself through you.
Through that person.
Exactly, and I think that it just broadens your entire experience as a human being because now you don't see people for what you can get from them, or you don't walk this earth feeling like it's all about my desires, but you see
them for who they
are, and what you can learn, and what you can show them, just what you can experience together.
Yeah.
So yeah, that inspired me. Smoking and drinking was really easy because I realized like it wasn't ever my thing. It was more of like a convenience thing. Like the people I was around were doing it, and that's something we could bond with. It was fun. But yeah, those things were pretty easy to cut out. But we all have different things that take us different take a different wild that kind of like get out of it.
Okay, so you do music, you have a podcast, you have a YouTube channel. I'm sure you got other side hustles. How do you keep up with everything?
I feel like I got
Merch.
I got a lot of things that I do and a lot of things that I want to do, and the best way I've found to cope with that is moving towards where I'm pulled. And again, that's why I say it's not just about like me in my head figuring everything out. I think that there's a pull within me that pulls me towards different things at different times, and just knowing that everything that's on my heart is going to be accomplished in due time. Is going to be accomplished. It puts me in a position where I can just say, all right, what am I equipped to do right now? So, for instance, I want to do another album and I want to write a book. Right now, though, I also want to do a podcast and I want to do YouTube. Right now, I'm not equipped to write a book. I'm also not equipped to do another album, but I am equipped. I have all the equipment. I'm in a space in my life where I'm very like vocal. I can speak. So I'm like, yeah, I'm being called to do a podcast. You know, so I'm going to do the podcast now. That doesn't mean I'm not working on my book. It just means that I have to figure out everything that I want to do and then organize like a ladder. So I did YouTube first. YouTube put me in a position where I got an audience. And in doing YouTube, I connected with people who did music because I put music under my videos. So now I was in a position to do music from YouTube. So that's like one step on the ladder going to another. Now I'm doing music. From music, people are like, oh, like your thoughts are so much more than like just YouTube videos. Like you can express it in music. I would love to hear a book from you. I think it's not that you can't do everything in the world, but it's about prioritizing and doing what you're equipped to do right now, and allowing life to move you and sort you and take you where you need to go and ladder it out. So you might be doing a podcast right now. A podcast might lead to you being a radio personality. That might lead to you being a speaker that goes around the world. But you allow these things to happen consecutively instead of feeling like you have to do everything all at once.
Makes sense. What are your aspirations moving forward with your business, with your merch line, with your podcast, with your music?
I think for me, bro, I just want to be an example of love, an example of light, and I want to further understand myself, and whatever comes from that, whatever comes from God through me, like I'm gonna move, and to learn again to be more in alignment with my divine path and my purpose. Whatever that breeds, I think I'm gonna be fully certain with, but I think anything I wanna do first starts with myself, so I wanna become more secure in understanding myself and understanding who I am and feeling good about myself, and feeling good about the people that surround myself with, my family, and however that manifests, whether it be an album or whatever, it's gonna be cool.
I appreciate you coming through, bro.
No problem, bro. Great conversation.